realness. Previously on ARP.
And also just knowing that it's so important to ensure that you have substance with what you're doing and saying at all times. And that's one of those non-negotiables, that you just can't be in a situation where you do not look at the overall substance of what you're saying. Just not something that you want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of times, that's what people do. That they go through these situations where, okay, I've made a decision that I'm a little less definite than I'd like to be. So I'm now deciding that, yes, this is something I want to correct. And I'm deciding now that I am going to be more definite. But don't just do that for the sake of just doing it and not being critical in your definitiveness, because ultimately now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're no longer being authentically who you are. So now you're becoming somebody that you're not, and then that comes off as being fake and phony, because that's what it is. And then it may position you in a place where you're in a worse situation than you were in when you were indecisive and weren't as definitive.
Realness.
All right, Fatty, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Theo, you there?
I'm here. Introducing authentic realness. Realness.
Hello. We are back again for another episode of my Authentic Realness podcast,
Realness.
ARP. And tonight is an exciting night. So I'd set you all up for what was to come. And we're here tonight. We have the authentic realness experts that I have been hyping up and telling you all that they were coming. So let me give some context. So these are people that I have encountered throughout the course of my life. And so far, I've identified 10 people, even with my mother being one of them. But Lord Jesus, I'm praying on that episode when I bring my mom on. And I'm just telling you all now, just be prepared, because she is a piece of work. That might be where I've gotten it from, but she's a piece of work. But in that, these 10 individuals that I have identified are people who I absolutely love from a vantage point of they're direct. They're the people who say what the rest of us are thinking, but we're like, let me just remain silent. These are the people that you don't ever have to wonder about what they're thinking. You don't ever have to ask them their opinion. You don't ever have to ask them their perspective. They're very point blank, in your face, direct folks that just tells you the truth. And these are folks that I love. You think about the name of this podcast, Authentic Realness Podcast. That's the essence of that. Certainly that's who I am. But I understand, as being the center point of the podcast, that there is a need for me to maybe water me down just a little bit so that you all can want to come back and listen to me. Because, of course, I've talked about cancel culture, and certainly I'm not far along anywhere yet for anybody to be canceling me. So I am somewhat cognizant that there's only but so far I can go. However, these people, they can be just as brutally honest as they want to be. It's not their show. You don't know them. And it's going to be amazing. So the two people that I have tonight, I have Laquan and Ham. Both of you say hello.
What's up?
Hello.
Excellent. Thank you all for being on. Don't act scared, shy, any of that type stuff. And what they're going to be doing, listeners, is they're just going to jump in. And if I'm out of line and I'm saying something that's just not appropriate or they don't agree with, they're going to get me together. Or if there's something they agree with, they're going to do that as well. And then, of course, I have my producer, Theo. Theo, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? What's up?
All is well. Thank you for being on. And Fabi's out tonight, everybody, but she will be back very soon. We haven't kicked her out completely yet. She just has some other stuff going on. And I don't want anybody, oh my God, he's gotten rid of Fabi already. No, Fabi's still involved. She's just not on tonight. So rumor mill, we don't have to start any of that. She'll be back. And maybe all radio shows and TV shows and newscasts and all, maybe they should do this too, because you all think about when somebody's out, what happens? The rumor mill starts. Oh my God, they've gotten rid of them. Just address it. She's out. She'll be back. No
It's
questions.
a legit concern. You've never been afraid to fire somebody.
Well, that too.
legit concern.
That's it. I would agree with you on that, brother. However, I'm all about making sure that the narrative for this is one that I'm able to dictate. And I'm not going to allow anybody else to define the narrative of what's going on here. But I appreciate that, Ham. See why I have Ham on, everybody? Like, I didn't prompt that. I didn't have to pay him for that. He just straight up came with, Plush, we know you. We know how you operate. So with that, we have Laquan, Ham, and Theo on tonight. And we're going to jump right in. So our topic tonight, this is one of those topics which is at the core of me on all levels, from a personal level, from a social level, from a professional level, from a corporate level. One of the things that I constantly thrive for, and I've talked about this on many of the episodes, is greatness. And one of the things that I've learned about life is greatness comes from hard work. Greatness comes from being intentional, deliberate. That when you want to be great, there's something called a spirit of excellence that goes along with that. However, 2022, as we're going into 2023, I don't see it. All I see is a lot of brokenness. I see a lot of mediocre. I see that the acceptance of average and basic and normal is just the acceptable expectation. And when you are great, when you're excellent, when you demand respect, when you demand amazing above and beyond, oh, you're extra. Why is that? How did we get here? So the discussion tonight is what's going on? So Theo, I'm going to throw it at you. What in the world is going on? And you may even disagree. So if you disagree, let's start there. But from my vantage point, that's where I see that we are. I've even read articles that talks about this being the golden era of stupidity. So just imagine that when our lifetime is looked upon by our children and our children's children, that we potentially may be identified as the time of folks living of the golden era of stupidity based upon our operations of things being mediocre and basic and at the lowest of the low and anything's accepted. What is that about, brother? Talk to me.
I feel like we live in a world where anyone with a cell phone can post anything or speak on anything and have face value towards it. It's like you can be a 15-year-old and get on YouTube or on your cell phone and go live, and you can have a tribe that agrees with you, and that can actually be a avenue for everyone to be on that same wavelength. I feel like everything's too obtainable right now. At one point in time, we lived in a place where you spoke and had conversations with people around you that family members, you disagree, and that's it. But now, anybody with a cell phone, anybody with access to internet can get on and set the standard. It can be a low standard, and people can go with it.
Okay.
And that's just my viewpoint on it.
So what I'm hearing, because I definitely want to dissect this, and I want to take it a bit lower, because we talked about this before, and I've said in very certain terms, social media didn't make people stupid. People were stupid before. Social media provided a platform for them to show their stupidity. And in what you're saying right now, I'm hearing that everybody has access. Everybody has the ability to go live. And certainly we even talked about in a previous episode that that's scary. Everybody doesn't need a platform.
I agree. We always had stupid people though.
Yeah.
Like it's been stupid people all over the place, but it's like now it's more prevalent because now you can put it on social media and show how
I get
stupid
it.
you are.
So we can really see it. Like even people's inability to spell. Like because we didn't have text messaging and social media and all those type things, and we didn't know that you can't spell. Like your grammar is horrible. So go ahead, Ham.
I was about to say, just piggybacking off of Theo, traditionally it was certain rites of passage that you had to go through to even obtain an audience or be worthy to have an audience.
Sure.
Now that there's nothing gatekeeping people having an audience, I think that's a big part of the issue right there. And then in turn, that turns everybody into an atmosphere of just groupthink,
Okay.
Where's the cognitive thought about stuff? In terms of people being mediocre, not only is mediocre acceptable, but it's debatable. That's my issue.
Yeah, because everybody has an opinion. So what Plush deems as being mediocre is like, who are you to be able to have a perspective and an opinion? I got it. I'm going to go a step lower though, because I don't want to paint the picture that having the avenues and the platforms is the culprit or the core. What I want to talk about is, I'll reel it in. I'll give you an example. I'll give you several examples, actually. First example, we all know I'm a consultant. And we also all know that I'm big on time. For example, this particular recording, we had a set time for all of us to be on. 5 minutes before, I'm on. Why? Because anything after that is late for me. And that's the norm for me in all aspects of my life. If I'm going to do something, if there's a set time, I'm going to be early. I don't get that often at all. I constantly get, when I schedule consultations, be it with corporations, individuals, whatever the case might be, the norm is I call in when I call in because my meeting was running late. Well, Aaron Plush has a 5-minute rule. We're supposed to start at 7:30. At 7:35, you're not on. I'm hanging up because you're now wasting my time.
Yeah, you're basically absent.
You're wasting my time.
Right.
And in turn, that's seen as being radical. That's extreme. Oh my God, like who doesn't give people a grace? I did give you one. I gave you 5 minutes because ultimately in my mind, if we're supposed to start at 7:30, then 7:30, we need to be started.
But just so I can chime in for once, I think that we are expand beyond topics, right? So we as a people, our standards, there's back on Christianity, people have different foundations now. The respect for elderly people, older people is just different. And so with that evolution and where we are going to, then to you and how we were raised and how we grew up, yes, we have something. We look at certain things. It's like it's a respect thing. These are things that you're supposed to do. But to this newer generation and where they are right now, that's just what it is. So they would argue, you think that they're mediocre and they may think that you're mediocre. It's like the saying goes, and I'm not going to quote it directly, but it says, in an insane society, the same person always appears to be insane. Right. So in your world, everybody else that's mediocre, or basic, that's just what they are in your world. And in their world, they're looking at you like you're crazy.
That's
right.
But
I do think
go ahead.
Right. So I do think that we are evolving as people, and I just at the core of it, just our standards and where we used to be and what we had as in terms of where we should be, the respect, the level, the education, everything like that, those are being reduced. And then that's part of the problem.
Let's be clear. I'm not talking ages. I'm talking people older than me that I have these same thoughts and situations with. And again, let's stay with the specific topic at hand. I'm talking meetings. I'm talking my consultancy. I'm talking about those folks who are paying me to work with them. And in turn, for me, this is a corporate professional situation. It's serious. Now, am I saying that situations don't come up? Absolutely. They come up all the time. I had a situation today that something came up. But what did I do? As soon as I knew that I had the conflict, the person that I was meeting with, I immediately said, hey, I have a conflict. We have one or two options. Let's reschedule, or I'm going to be 10 minutes late. What works best for you? And that person just said, hey, fine, let's meet at a later time. Why? Because I took ownership. I knew that I was someplace that I needed to be, continued on with that, but I had the respect for the other person's time to simply reach out. For me to know that I have a 4 o'clock anything with you, and for me to show up at 4:10 with the expectation that you're just sitting there waiting on me is absolutely ridiculous for me. And that's at any age, young, old, in between, doesn't matter, because that leads to an absence of respect for your time, for me. Now, do I think that the world needs to think that we're the air and push things? Absolutely not. But I do know that there has to be some basic things that we have to do from a communication perspective that is going to have an impact on other things. So I'm going to stay right there on consultancy, time, scheduling, and allow any of you all to throw darts at me, whatever you want to throw, and give me perspectives on that, and then we'll move on to another example. So
I can agree. Yeah, just being on a Zoom call or Teams or Slack or whatever you use, that 1 minute past the actual time the meeting was supposed to start, when you're sitting on the call, is like the longest minute. It's so awkward. Like that's like one of the only times where you actually experience all 60 seconds of a minute. It's like, oh, you start apologizing to the other people that are on the call. I'm sure they're doing something, and it's literally only like 4:0 in 39 seconds. It's not even 4:01 yet. You know, and that's what. But I think that's another situation. Well, goes to what Plush is saying. You know, I'm hardwired to feel awkward like that. There are people, despite their age, who are comfortable being late, that don't experience that level of awkwardness in those situations, which completely baffles me. And I find it, disrespectful if that's how your norm is. But yeah, I 100% agree. But also in corporate America,
meeting, Pam, I tell you this, there's some answers to that. So one of the things that I do, I don't start any meeting without checking in on people first. How are you doing? So in that how you're doing moment, that gives everybody an opportunity. If you are late for a group meeting, I really don't care, because we're going to go ahead and get started and we're going to rock and roll. But we're going to do a check-in. We're going to see how everybody's doing. Is your day going well, particularly in this virtual world? Because certainly I don't ever want to be in a situation where I didn't do a check-in and somebody's having an extreme situation where they may need to drop off. Didn't feel comfortable dropping off, but in them sharing at the beginning, it may, hey, go do what you got to do. Take care of your family. Take care of you. Do what you have to do. You don't know that if you don't do that check-in. The other thing is a larger meeting started with music, and that music takes away that component of what you're talking about, of that awkwardness, and let it be known, hey, start time is 4:05, arrival time is 4. Then nobody's upset. But where I have a problem is when you just nonchalantly show up and everybody else is the problem. and it's an issue because, oh, well, I'm back to back today. Hell, all of us are back to back today. We back to back every day. That still doesn't give me a pass off to just do what I want to do. And that's the point that I'm talking about. It's that we have allowed complacency, mediocre, average crap to be okay and acceptable. And in turn, that's why people do it, because nobody's calling anybody out, including ourselves.
No one's holding anyone accountable. And then at the same time, no one's setting expectations.
Correct. So so the standard is show up when you show up. But then as a project manager, but when your project is off, now it's a problem. Oh my God.
Right.
We're over time, we're over, but well, it was those smaller things that everybody overlooked
microcosm
that were letting us know, hey, if you don't fix me, you're going to see this on the back end. Right. And in my world, as a consultant who prides himself on delivery, on doing exactly what I say I'm going to do, when I say I'm going to do it, within budget, on time, and everything in place with every I dotted, with every T crossed. I don't have time to be playing around with anybody, because anybody that I play with, that now leaves me in jeopardy to not have the ability to deliver what I committed to delivering. And if I don't check it, let me tell you whose fault that is. It's not that person's fault, it's mine. But that goes back to an inability to check whoever and say, hey, this is not how we fly here. Now, how you fly on your team and what you do with you and how you want to do it, that's great, wonderful. Have at it. But that's not how we work over here.
Let me ask you a question. So, with that being said, it seems like, you have a desire for everybody to step it up. But I know you. So how much do you actually like being exceptional, knowing that the only way you're exceptional is if everybody else is some bums? Because I know you love it.
I tell you, there's a lot of growth, development, and maturity that's occurred
Don't
in
feel
my
like you
life.
want everybody to be on Plush level.
I do, actually.
Plush level?
I do, because one of the things, Ham, that you always have to remember about me, right. and this just goes to the whole concept where people would like to believe that Plush is arrogant and conceited and doesn't care about anybody but himself and all those type things. And those of you who really know me, that's the farthest thing from the truth. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to be any place defending me. Whatever the hell you want to think about me, fine with me, because I don't care. I know my truth. And I know my truth in me, and I know my truth most importantly in God. But what I tell you, brother, it's almost like what I like and what I do is never for anybody else. So I'm exceptional for me. Like, I like the clothes that I like for me. I like the loft that I have for me. So because it's for me, you being great or greater than me, let's have at it. Let's go with it. So to answer your question, I do want everybody to be exceptional, because me being exceptional is not based upon other people being bums. Me being exceptional is just because I'm Aaron R. Plush, the end of conversation, discussion, nothing else to debate, discuss, or anything else. And again, let's be very clear. It's not arrogance. It's not conceit. It's none of that stuff. It's simply, I am confident in who I am, and no one will ever take that from me.
Correct. Good stuff. So, I brought that up because, the things that annoy you from just this conversation are the things that annoy me in the corporate space. And I want everybody to step it up, but I also know that makes being successful low-hanging fruit. If people can't execute on just common business etiquette, it just paved the way for me to just navigate fast track through my whole career, because everybody else is just like awful.
Yeah.
And and I tell my kids it's okay. You're not a better person than anybody, but you will 100% be better than people at things. And that's okay.
Love it. But also, that's a topic for another day, because that whole
for sure
component of let's just put everybody in the same class and let's all just learn together. Absolutely not.
You cannot do that.
Well,
we all learn at different levels, different paces. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right. But I think you trying to bring us back into the point almost proved another point, because trying to bring everybody to that class might explain why mediocrity is being accepted, because it's the biggest group. Because if you look at a standard deviation curve, why shouldn't we make? Why would you, with any common sense, make the norm based on the two tails of a standard deviation curve rather than the big hump in the middle?
Absolutely.
But let me ask y'all this: do you feel like a lot of people go into a corporate space of being mediocre because they know they can just leave and go to the next place like it ain't nothing?
It's a possibility. You got to remember, it's 8 billion of us. Go ahead, Laquan.
No, I was going to say, or people are just inherently lazy, and they're just subpar.
Absolutely.
Or they know their privilege and they walk in it. Just like I go to a meeting and one of the non-us people, doing a presentation, doing a PowerPoint presentation, and they're not even on presentation mode. So I can see all your tabs, and this is just acceptable. I'm thinking I'm in the twilight zone. I'm like, what is going on? Like, let my black, try this stuff. And they be like, see, we shouldn't have promoted this Negro. Like, see, but, white guy, he's not even in presentation mode. Plus, the screen is on maybe 75%. So I could see desktop icons on the side. This man moving the presentation along with the front and back arrow. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm sorry, and then don't let me get on people's garbage spreadsheet etiquette. What kind of psychopath has different row and columns and everything all out disjointed? So yeah, the spirit of excellence, it goes to the minutia of everything that you touch. Like,
Absolutely.
I get on my team. All this is unacceptable. You got multiple different types of font. You got I'm with you on this one.
But some people are just not taught. So we're talking about people being privileged. We're talking about people being lazy. Some people are just not taught.
True.
True. If they've not gone through the experience and no one's shown them, they've not had somebody to teach them to do the right things, to be in a proper setting, how to speak, how to present, whatever, then you get what you get.
Yeah.
And they may not have the drive too. It comes to drive too. They may not want it,
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that, everything that's being said. But one of the things that I have to do, because I have listeners across the board of everybody, and for me, I've found it's not a color thing, because unfortunately, I've had some experiences recently that have been cringeworthy for me, and it's been with people who look like me and you. Right. From a vantage point of, I'd never worked with some of these folks before. We were in similar situations and in various auxiliary groups, but never worked with. So then you begin to see some of the things that these people are saying, but yet the conversation has always been, I've been overlooked for the promotion. And here I am thinking recently, shit, I get it. I understand why. Because I would have overlooked you too. So the part that I want to be very clear about is excellence doesn't have a color. Excellence is about, are you thriving to be great? Are you working from a place where you want to be the best you, whoever that is? And here's the part that I get also. Everybody's not going to be a superstar, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a competition, but be the best you, and whoever that may be that person. And that's the component of the core of what I'm talking about. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing the procrastination. I'm seeing being mediocre. I'm seeing being basic. I'm seeing that groupthink that you talked about, which is one of my major pet peeves. Like, I need you to have your own opinion
on thoughts,
on every topic. Who cares what I think? Who cares who's the loudest person in the room? Who cares who talks the most? I don't care. You need to have an opinion. So I say all of that to say, in very certain terms, that this is an amazing discussion and dialogue. I want to go to the second example, because I said I was going to give a couple. So we did the deeper dive into the whole concept of meetings and time and that type stuff. But here's one that I also struggle with. So let's just say we have a situation where there's a group team assignment, and we all, and we can use us, that we all are responsible for our part of the project. How dare I just assume that, I'm just not going to do my part. LaQuanta's going to do it. Because I know she's the leader. She has it. She's going to make it happen. And then I'm going to circle back, though, when it's time to take the credit for the success that we've had. I'm here to celebrate. I was a part of it. What is that about?
It's just laziness.
Selfishness.
Entitlement.
But where does it come from? Like what gives somebody any thought that they can do that? Right, exactly. The audacity to even do such a thing. Like, are you kidding me?
It's a self-centered act.
Okay.
It's a selfish act. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. In that moment, they're not looking at it as a team effort. It's an I, not a team. So people don't think the same way in a team group environment. Like, this is a we thing. We thrive. We make it when we do our part. And as long as it's a we and we stick together, the project will be successful. But if you got that one person that's all about themselves, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And
not realizing that. Yeah, and not only are they jeopardizing the team, but they're jeopardizing the company. They're jeopardizing the project that they're working on with me as a consultant. And I found that these folks a lot of times are just as nonchalant as can be, don't care, woe is me, and they rock with it.
I've seen too that people just lack the motivation, depending on the environment that they're in. They just lack the motivation to want to, be a part of a team, to be, included in there. Maybe they feel, it's different factors that can come along with that. Maybe they just feel like, my voice won't matter anyway. So why be engaged? Why be involved? Why care?
I think it's kind of predatory. And I say that to say that once somebody who is slack identifies a high performer, then that's their prey.
Yeah.
Now, if you compartmentalize a project where there is no overlap, but you're still collaborating, I think that's the only way to dead that. And I'll also say if there's a group of 4 mediocre people, that's less likely to happen than in a group of 2 high performers and 2 non-performers. Because the group of all mediocre folks have nobody to lean on. They can identify that, and they're like, okay, none of us can swim, so we're gonna have to hold on to each other, that type of deal. So I think it's a whole dynamic. But people who take advantage of systems are predatory. Think about scammers. Think about people who just think about scammers. If you do that in a group, you a damn scammer. You might as well be swiping credit cards and doing PPP.
Last example that I have.
He's stealing.
Because we could go on and on about these topics, and they're broad for a reason. But the classic, I like the rush of doing things last minute and procrastination. Please make that make sense to me, because my mind cannot process that at all as a planner, as a do things in advance, as a being on time. This mind can't wrap itself around it. Can you all make that make sense for me? Because I don't know.
I will say
it's an adrenaline rush, Plush.
It is. I will say that sometimes, I have procrastinated and I've produced some high quality work in my procrastination. But it is true that, like they say, proper planning prevents a piss poor performance.
Correct.
So typically, some people who are organized can get it ahead of time. And then there's just some people who just aren't that motivated, that just want to do it. And they just procrastinate. And I'm on both sides of the spectrum.
Well, I love that organized word that you mentioned, because that's the one that I am. That organized planner who has dates and timelines and deliverables that are a long time before the due date.
Yes.
So I'm not a true procrastinator. I will wait till the last minute, but one thing I will say I do is take a lot of mental risks. So up until the time that I know I have to do something, like my unconscious mind is consumed about how that final product is going to look. Okay. Whatever that project is being built and planned out in my head way before I, put pen to pad or, open up my MacBook or whatever. So I might execute some stuff last minute, but I have that vision, just like you taught us in school. Like I had that, what's my vision? So as I'm walking around, I do a lot of distance running. When I'm running, I'm thinking about it all the time. So I can't necessarily say it's a true procrastination because I have a detailed idea on how I want the outcome to look. But I will get that adrenaline rush because I don't play sports anymore. So I just like a rush. I'm not skydiving, so why not do my presentation late?
Okay.
You know what else it is? I'm going to tell you, because since I can see both sides, right? When it's something that I'm really interested in and I really care about, absolutely, I'm proper planning. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing everything. I'm organized. I have the dates, the schedule. And then when it's something that I really don't want to do it. I'm being told I got to do it. I really don't care. I'm good. And you sit there and you procrastinate. I don't even know where to start, whatever. And then it comes down to the wire and then you're doing it. I will sit there and if I have 10 projects and I know this one is due tomorrow, I'll do the other 9, even if they don't have dates that are due tomorrow, before I do the one that's due tomorrow, because I'm just not interested in it. I'm not motivated in it. It's more like a chore to me. But I end up producing well anyway, because that's just who I am. But sometimes it's like, I think we're driven by things that also interest us.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you all, this has been an amazing conversation. We're at time. And certainly one of the things that I want to do is make sure that I am always cognizant and thankful to you all for giving me your time to record this podcast. So I am going to end the conversation here. Certainly, we'll have many more opportunities to continue this. As I talked about, we'll be going to video in the future. So a lot of these topics we'll be revisiting. And if there needs to be a part 2 of this, we'll definitely consider and think about that as well. But what I tell you all in very certain terms, and this is what has been my mantra for as long as I've known myself, Nike got it right a long time ago. Just do it. And when you do that, you will be unstoppable. It's just that simple. Just do it, whatever it is. If you don't want to be interested, if you have whatever you need, your adrenaline rush, whatever you need, if you just do it and you have that at the forefront of your mind, like let's take stuff like, oh, in the back of my mind. No, let's move it to the front. And if you move that very simple mantra to the front of your mind, I assure you that you will see growth, development, and movement in all that you're doing. So I'm going to leave with the Nike phrase of just do it. With that,
You almost got me ready to go back to work, man. That was good.
well, good.
Right.
So
Right now, I'm
you're
about to drive
pumped and ready to go for the tomorrow
Right.
morning.
Let's turn our laptops back on.
I love it. So that means I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm presenting some hope, some encouragement, and some motivation. So look at
And
God.
motivation.
Look at what God is doing. I love it.
Yes.
All right. So let's go to the throne in prayer. Heavenly Father God, we come before you right now, God. Just thank you for such a tremendous opportunity tonight for 4 of your children to be in a situation, God, where we're talking about our current times. Because certainly, God, I know you well enough to know that we can't just leave you in the Bible in biblical times. I know for certain, God, that you have an expectation that we make you relevant and current and a living God, because that's who you are. And in that, God, we would ask that these topics that we've lifted up tonight around being mediocre and there being procrastination and there being just that sense of these times potentially being an era that's going to be viewed as the golden era of stupidity, that these times, God, are not being viewed as the brightest of times, that people just don't come off as being bright. No one wants to be excellent. No one wants to be great. It's just status quo. But God, because we know your power, we're asking that you might touch all 8 billion of us living right now, God, that we all might be inspired by this discussion, that we all might really take that self-inventory, God, of truly being honest with ourselves, to have that authentic realness moment with ourselves, and to be honest and truthful. Because here's the thing. We can lie to ourselves. We can lie to those around us. But God, we can never lie to you because you know it all. And I would just ask that everyone who hears this prayer would be touched in a way that they truly do that inventory, that they would assess where they are, and that they would look at how can they be beacons of light of you, and how might they turn around the narrative and to make this a time where we all are excellent, we all are great, and we all are doing those things that we say we want, but we're not willing to do what it takes to get what we say we want. God, I'd ask that you would continue to cover Laquan and her family, that you would be with Ham and his family, that you'd be with Theo and his family, and God, certainly with me and my family as well, that as we are moving into the Christmas season, that you would cover all of us, that you would have us to be reminded as to what the season is truly about, and for us to have the right mindset throughout it. So God, we love you, we adore you, we magnify you, and it's in the glorious and magnificent name of your son, Jesus, that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So to the listeners, as we wrap up this episode, and certainly I know some of you are going to be looking at me sideways. I know some of you are going to want to continue to cancel me and all those type things. As I always say, I'd ask that you would take everything that was said tonight in the spirit of love, in the spirit of transparency, in one where all 4 individuals were focused on us all getting better. And with that, I'd remind you all that the best part of this Authentic Realness podcast is each and every one of you. And in the typical way that I always end these, until next time, let us all be spectacular.